The sledgehammer crashed through pristine blue tiles as Sarah demolished her own backyard paradise. But when her neighbor Karen stormed across the property line with a legal document in her trembling fist, demanding $15,000 for emotional damages. To her children, Sarah had no idea she was about to uncover a web of lies that would destroy everything Karen had built. Sometimes the pool you drain reveals more than just an empty hole in the ground. Sarah Chen wiped the sweat from her forehead as she surveyed the destruction before her. What had once been a stunning kidney-shaped pool now resembled a concrete crater filled with debris. Broken tiles gleamed like sapphires in the afternoon sun, and the skeletal remains of diving board supports jutted from the shallow end like twisted metal bones. "That's the last of it," called Miguel, her contractor, as his crew loaded the final pieces of pool equipment onto their truck. "You sure about this, Mrs. Chen? That was a beautiful pool." Sarah nodded, though her chest tightened with a familiar ache. "I'm sure. It needs to go." The pool had been David's dream. For 3 years, he'd planned every detail: the natural stone coping, the underwater LED lights that turned the water into liquid emerald at night, the waterfall feature that masked the sounds of suburban life. He died before they could enjoy a single summer together in it. Now, 18 months after the cancer had taken him, Sarah couldn't bear to look at the monument to dreams they'd never share. The pool maintenance alone cost more than her teacher's salary could comfortably handle, and the insurance liability kept her awake at night. But mostly, it was the emptiness, the way the water reflected nothing but her own solitude. "Mom's going to flip," muttered her teenage daughter Emma from the kitchen window. At 17, Emma had inherited her father's dramatic flair along with his dark eyes. She'd been furious about the pool demolition for weeks. "Your mom already flipped." Sarah called back. "That's why we are filling this money pit with dirt." As Miguel's crew finished packing up, Sarah noticed her neighbor Karen Patterson standing at the property line, her arms crossed and her expression thunderous. Karen was what David used to call aggressively suburban, the type of woman who knew every homeowners association rule by heart and wasn't shy about enforcing them. "Afternoon, Karen," Sarah said, walking over to the chain-link fence that separated their properties. "Don't you afternoon me," Karen snapped. Her perfectly styled blonde hair didn't move despite the breeze, and her white capri pants looked fresh from the dry cleaner even at 4 in the afternoon. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Sarah blinked. "I removed a pool from my own backyard." "You've destroyed my children's entire summer." Karen's voice climbed to a pitch that made the neighborhood dogs start barking. "Maddie and Tyler have been counting on using your pool for months. I've already bought them new swimsuits, pool toys, floaties. I spent over $300. Karen, I never said your kids could use our pool." "You didn't have to say it explicitly." Karen waved her hand dismissively. "It was implied. Neighborly courtesy. And now you've just obliterated their plans without any consideration for how it affects other people." Sarah felt her teacher patience wearing thin. "I'm sorry if your kids are disappointed, but it's my property. I had every right to." "Rights don't matter when children are involved," Karen interrupted. "Maddie cried for an hour when she saw what you were doing. Tyler asked me if he did something wrong to make you hate them. Do you understand the psychological damage you've caused?" "Karen, I want compensation." The words hung in the air like smoke. Sarah stared at her neighbor, wondering if she'd misheard. "Excuse me." "Compensation. Reimbursement. Whatever you want to call it." Karen's voice took on a businesslike tone that was somehow more unsettling than her hysteria. "My children were psychologically and emotionally damaged by your selfish decision. The least you can do is pay for the summer activities they'll need instead of pool time." "Are you serious right now?" "Dead serious. I've already looked into it. There's summer camp at the community center, 8 weeks at $200 per child. Plus the pool passes at the recreation center, the swimming lessons they'll need to catch up on the skills they would have developed in your pool, and therapeutic counseling to help them process this betrayal." Sarah's mouth fell open. "Betrayal? Karen, it's a pool, not a death in the family. Don't minimize their trauma." Karen pulled out her phone and began scrolling. "I've been documenting everything. The tears, the confusion, the complete disruption of their routine. I have a call scheduled with my attorney tomorrow morning." "Your attorney?" "Maddie and Tyler have been swimming in that pool 3 times. A week for the past 2 summers. It became a reasonable expectation. You can't just yank away something children depend on without consequences. Sarah laughed, a short, disbelieving sound. Karen, your kids used my pool maybe 6 times total. And that was only because I felt sorry for them when you locked yourself out and they were crying on your porch. That's not how they remember it. Memory isn't legally binding. Karen's eyes narrowed. We'll see about that. I'm calculating $15,000 in damages, emotional distress, alternative recreation costs, and punitive measures for your complete disregard of community standards. $15,000. Sarah's voice cracked. For removing my own pool. For traumatizing children. There's precedent, you know. A woman in Ohio was sued for taking down a treehouse that neighborhood kids had been using. She lost. Sarah felt the world tilting sideways. She'd spent the last year and a half drowning in David's medical bills, fighting with insurance companies, and struggling to keep their mortgage current on a single income. The pool demolition had cost her $3,000 she couldn't really afford, money that would have gone to Emma's college fund. Karen, please. I can't. I don't have that kind of money. Then you shouldn't have made such a reckless decision. Karen turned to walk away, then paused. I'll give you 24 hours to think it over. After that, my attorney handles everything. As Karen click-clacked across her pristine driveway in designer sandals, Sarah sank onto the pile of broken concrete that had once been her pool steps. The afternoon sun beat down mercilessly, and she could smell the chlorine scent still clinging to the debris. Emma emerged from the house, her face pale. Mom. I heard yelling. What did Mrs. Patterson want? Nothing, honey. Just neighbor stuff. But as Sarah watched Karen disappear into her McMansion, she noticed something that made her blood run. Cold. Karen's backyard wasn't visible from most angles, blocked by a tall privacy fence and mature oak trees. But from where Sarah sat in the ruins of a pool, she had a perfect view into Karen's outdoor living space. And there, gleaming like a turquoise jewel, was Karen's own pool. Not just any pool, a massive, resort-style oasis complete with a hot tub, water slide, and elaborate stone deck. It was easily twice the size of the pool Sarah had just demolished, and judging by the pristine condition and modern features, it was brand new. Sarah's hands began to tremble as the implications crashed over her. Karen Patterson, who claimed her children were devastated by the loss of pool access, had been hiding a backyard paradise that would make a country club jealous. The question was, why? As if sensing Sarah's scrutiny, Karen's back door slid open. But instead of Karen or her children, a man emerged. Tall, athletic, wearing nothing but swim trunks and a confident smile. He dove cleanly into the crystal clear water while Karen watched from her kitchen window, a glass of wine in her hand and an expression on her face that Sarah had never seen her wear around her husband Bob. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. She'd lived next door to Karen for 5 years, and she'd never seen this man before. More importantly, Bob Patterson was supposed to be on a business trip to Denver, a trip that had conveniently started the same day Karen began her pool crusade. As the mysterious man surfaced and pulled himself onto the pool deck, his hand trailing water across Karen's bare leg, Sarah realized she'd stumbled onto something far more complex than a neighbor dispute. Karen wasn't just hiding a pool. She was hiding an affair. And somehow, Sarah's demolished pool had become the perfect cover story for something much darker. Sarah barely slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Karen's face, the calculated coldness behind her suburban mom mask, the way she'd thrown around legal threats like confetti. But mostly, she saw the mystery man in Karen's backyard, his hands on Karen's skin while her husband was 3 states away. By 6 a.m., Sarah was at her kitchen table with coffee and her laptop, diving into research with the same intensity she brought to lesson planning. If Karen wanted to play legal games, Sarah needed to understand the rules. 3 hours later, Emma shuffled downstairs in pajamas, her dark hair a tangle of bedhead. Mom, you've been typing for forever. It's Saturday. Just doing some research, honey. Sarah minimized the browser window titled Fraudulent Lawsuits and How to Fight Them. Emma poured herself orange juice and peered over Sarah's shoulder. This is about Mrs. Patterson, isn't it? What she said yesterday. Sarah hesitated. Emma was 17, old enough to handle adult problems, but young enough that Sarah still wanted to protect her from the uglier sides of human nature. "She's threatening to sue us," Sarah said finally, "for taking down the pool." "That's insane. Can she actually do that?" "I don't know. That's what I'm trying to figure out." Emma was quiet for a moment, staring out the window toward Karen's house. "Mom, something weird happened yesterday, after all the yelling." "What kind of weird?" "I was in my room, and I heard Mrs. Patterson's car start. But when I looked out the window, her car was still in the driveway. It was a different car leaving, like a red sports car or something." Sarah's pulse quickened. "Did you see who was driving?" "No, but..." Emma frowned, working through the memory. It was weird because Mrs. Patterson came outside right after and started watering her front garden. Like she was making sure people saw her there, you know? But she was wearing this huge smile. Not her usual fake nice smile, like a real one. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. Karen hadn't just been hiding an affair, she'd been flaunting it in plain sight, using her harassment campaign as a distraction technique. Who would question a woman's whereabouts when she was busy playing the victim? "Emma, I need you to do me a favor. If you see any unusual cars at the Pattersons' house, especially when Mr. Patterson isn't home, I want you to tell me." "Okay." "Are you going all Nancy Drew on her?" "Something like that." Around noon, Sarah's phone rang. The caller ID showed a number she didn't recognize, but the area code was local. "Mrs. Chen, this is Marcus Rodriguez from Rodriguez and Associates. I represent Karen Patterson regarding your recent property destruction." Sarah's stomach dropped. "My property destruction?" "The demolition of recreational facilities that my client's children had reasonable expectation to access. Mrs. Patterson has documented substantial emotional damages, and we are prepared to file suit for $15,000 in compensatory and punitive damages." "Mr. Rodriguez, with all due respect, this is ridiculous. I removed a pool from my own backyard." "Mrs. Chen, I understand this situation may seem trivial to you, but child psychology experts recognize that disruption of established routines can cause genuine trauma. My client has video evidence of her children's distress, witness statements from other neighbors about their pool usage patterns, and documentation of financial losses." Sarah gripped the phone tighter. "What witnesses?" "I'm not at liberty to discuss our evidence at this time. However, I'm authorized to offer you a settlement opportunity. If you agree to pay $7,500 within the next 48 hours, my client will consider the matter resolved." $7,500 I don't have for something I didn't do wrong. "Mrs. Chen, litigation is expensive and unpredictable. This settlement offer represents significant savings compared to potential court costs and judgments. I strongly advise you to consider it carefully." After hanging up, Sarah sat in her empty kitchen, staring at the pile of bills on her counter. David's final medical expenses, Emma's college applications, with their hefty fees, the mortgage payment that was always a struggle to make on time. $7,500 might as well have been $7 million. That evening, Sarah waited until dark before slipping into her backyard with a pair of binoculars, a relic from David's brief birdwatching phase. She positioned herself behind the tool shed, which gave her a clear view of Karen's pool area through the privacy fence slats. At first, nothing. Karen's house glowed with warm light, and she could see Karen moving around her kitchen, apparently cooking dinner. Normal suburban mom behavior. Then, at 8:47 p.m., a red Porsche pulled into Karen's driveway. Sarah adjusted the binoculars as a man emerged from the car, the same man she'd seen the day before. Tall, dark-haired, wearing expensive clothes that screamed not from this neighborhood. He didn't knock or ring the doorbell. Instead, he walked directly around to the backyard gate, clearly familiar with the layout. Within minutes, both Karen and the mystery man were by the pool. Karen had changed from her mom uniform of khakis and polo shirt into a tiny red bikini that Sarah had never seen her wear during neighborhood barbecues. The man was already shirtless, and even from a distance, Sarah could see he was significantly younger and fitter than Bob Patterson. They weren't subtle. Hands roaming, bodies pressed together, the kind of passionate embrace that spoke of urgent desire rather than marital comfort. When they slipped into the hot tub together, Sarah looked away, feeling simultaneously disgusted and vindicated. Karen Patterson, who was demanding $15,000 for her children's psychological trauma, was conducting an affair in the same backyard where those supposedly traumatized children played every day. Sarah was documenting the time and taking notes when her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Stop watching. You don't want to make this worse for yourself." Sarah's blood turned to ice. She looked around frantically, searching the shadows for whoever was watching her watch Karen. The backyard was empty, but the sensation of being observed crawled across her skin like spiders. Another text arrived. "Beautiful night, isn't it? Sarah. Perfect for swimming. Too bad you destroyed your pool." Someone knew exactly where she was and what she was doing. Sarah grabbed her binoculars and fled toward the house, her hand shaking so badly she could barely turn the door handle. Inside, she double-checked every lock and pulled all the curtains closed. Emma was upstairs with headphones on, oblivious to the drama unfolding below. Sarah's mind raced through possibilities. Who was sending the texts? Karen's lover? Someone else entirely? A third text made her phone buzz against the kitchen counter. "Your daughter walks to school alone every morning. Nice routine. Very predictable." The threat was clear and paralyzing. This wasn't just about money anymore. Sarah clutched her phone, torn between calling the police and worrying that she had no real evidence of anything beyond an affair. And affairs, while morally questionable, weren't illegal. But threatening someone's child was. At 11 p.m., Sarah watched from her darkened living room window as the red Porsche left Karen's driveway. Karen stood in her doorway wearing a silk robe, waving goodbye with the satisfied smile of a woman who'd gotten exactly what she wanted. Sarah's phone rang. Karen's name appeared on the screen. "Hello, neighbor." Karen's voice was sickeningly sweet. "I hope you're considering Marcus's generous settlement offer. It really would be easier for everyone if we could resolve this quickly and quietly." "Karen, I know what you're doing. I'm protecting my children's interests. What else would I be doing? I saw him in your pool while Bob's out of town." The silence stretched for so long that Sarah wondered if the call had dropped. When Karen spoke again, her voice had changed completely. Gone was the suburban mom act, replaced by something cold and sharp. "You saw what, exactly, Sarah?" "I saw enough." "No, you didn't. You saw a man. You don't know who he is, why he was there, or what it means. But more importantly, you saw him from your property, using binoculars, after dark. That's voyeurism, Sarah. That's a crime." Sarah's mouth went dry. "You're the one committing adultery." Adultery isn't illegal in this state. Voyeurism is. Especially when there's evidence that the voyeur has been exhibiting erratic, obsessive behavior. Like, say, destroying property and then stalking neighbors. "I'm not stalking. My security cameras suggest otherwise." Amazing the footage you can get these days. Crystal clear, even in low light. The trap closed around Sarah like a steel jaw. Karen had orchestrated everything. The affair, the lawsuit, even Sarah's investigation. Every move Sarah made had been anticipated and countered. "What do you want, Karen?" "I want you to stop looking where you don't belong. I want you to pay the settlement. And I want you to remember that Emma walks to school alone every morning at 7:15 a.m., takes the same route every day, and stops at the coffee shop on Pine Street every Tuesday and Thursday." The line went dead. Sarah stared at her phone, her hands trembling with rage and fear. Karen hadn't just threatened her. She demonstrated intimate knowledge of Emma's routine, the kind of detailed surveillance that spoke of weeks of watching and planning. But as Sarah sat in her darkened living room, surrounded by the ruins of her simple suburban life, a dangerous thought began to form. Karen Patterson had made one crucial mistake in her elaborate game of manipulation and intimidation. She'd underestimated Emma. Sarah didn't sleep Sunday night. Instead, she sat at her kitchen table with legal pads, her laptop, and a determination that burned like acid in her chest. If Karen wanted to play chess, Sarah would learn the game fast enough to win. By dawn, she had a plan. The first step was protecting Emma. Sarah called her sister Lisa in Portland, Oregon, using the careful tone she'd perfected during David's illness, calm on the surface, desperate underneath. "I need Emma to visit you. This week. For the rest of the summer if possible." "Sarah, what's wrong? You sound." "I'm dealing with a legal situation. It's complicated. but I need to know Emma's safe while I handle it. Lisa, bless her practical heart, didn't ask for details. I'll book her flight today. Send her out Tuesday morning. Monday morning, Sarah walked Emma to school herself, something she hadn't done since middle school. Emma protested the escort and the sudden travel plans, but Sarah's explanation of neighbor drama that might get messy satisfied her teenager's need for information without revealing the true stakes. It'll be fun, Sarah insisted as they approached Jefferson High. Aunt Lisa's been wanting to show you Portland forever. You can tour those art colleges you've been researching. What about your legal stuff? Shouldn't I be here to help? Sarah hugged her daughter fiercely, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo. The best way you can help is by being somewhere I don't have to worry about you. After depositing Emma safely in the chaos of high school hallways, Sarah drove to the county courthouse. The clerk of court's office smelled like coffee and desperation, familiar scents from David's medical bankruptcy proceedings. I need to research property records and court filings, Sarah told the bored-looking clerk, specifically for 1247 Maple Street. Karen's address. For the next 4 hours, Sarah dove into public records with the intensity of a detective. Property transfers, building permits, tax assessments, HOA complaints, civil court filings. She took notes in shorthand, a skill left over from her college journalism days. What she found painted an interesting picture. Karen and Bob Patterson had bought their house 3 years ago for $485,000, significantly above market value, suggesting a competitive bidding situation. 6 months later, they'd pulled permits for major renovations, pool installation, outdoor kitchen, landscaping, and a home office addition. Total permitted value, $150,000. But here's where it got interesting. The pool permit was filed under a different contractor than all the other work. Apex Aquatic Design, owned by one Marcus Rodriguez. The same Marcus Rodriguez who was representing Karen in her lawsuit against Sarah. Sarah's pulse quickened as she cross-referenced business licenses and professional registrations. Marcus Rodriguez, attorney at law, had been licensed for only 8 months. Before that, he'd been Marcus Rodriguez, pool contractor, for 12 years. Karen's lover wasn't just cheating on her husband. He was a fake lawyer running a scam using his legitimate pool business as cover. The red Porsche, the expensive clothes, the confident swagger, all funded by victims who believed they were settling real lawsuits. But Sarah needed proof. Tuesday morning, after tearful goodbyes at the airport, Sarah returned home to find an envelope taped to her front door. Inside, legal papers that looked official enough to fool most people. A summons to appear in court, signed by a judge she'd never heard of, for a hearing scheduled in 10 days. Sarah smiled grimly. Marcus had made his second mistake. The fake judge's signature was notarized by Jennifer Patterson, whose address matched Karen's house exactly. Karen had forged legal documents using her own daughter's name as notary. That afternoon, Sarah visited the real Marcus Rodriguez, a different man entirely, older and grayer, who ran a legitimate law practice specializing in family court. Someone's using my name. He frowned at the lawsuit documents Sarah showed him. This letterhead is similar to mine, but the address is wrong. And this signature. He pulled out a magnifying glass. That's not my signature. What should I do? Call the police. This is identity theft and fraud. Serious crimes. He studied the papers more carefully. Whoever did this is sophisticated. They know enough about legal procedure to make this look real to most people. But they made amateur mistakes too. Like this court date, it's scheduled for a federal holiday when courts are closed. Sarah thanked him and drove to the police station, where Detective Ray Morrison listened to her story with increasing interest. We've had 3 other reports of similar fake lawsuits in the past 6 months. Always targeting single women, always involving property disputes, always demanding settlements in the $5,000 to $15,000 range. He tapped his pen against his desk. You say you've seen this fake lawyer at your neighbor's house? Multiple times. And I believe they're involved in an intimate relationship. That would explain the personal information they seem to have about their victims. Someone's been doing reconnaissance. Morrison leaned back in his chair. Would you be willing to help us build a case? It might involve some risk. What kind of risk? We'd need you to play along temporarily. Act like you're considering the Settlement while we gather evidence. It means they'll keep pressure on you, but we'll be monitoring everything. Sarah thought of Emma, safely in Portland. Of David's medical bills that still haunted their credit report. Of the demolished pool that had started this nightmare. What do you need me to do? The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Sarah would contact Marcus Rodriguez and request an in-person meeting to discuss settlement terms. Detective Morrison would wire her with recording equipment and have backup positioned nearby. When Marcus showed up with forged legal documents, they'd have him cold on fraud charges. But first, Sarah had her own gambit to play. Wednesday evening, she knocked on Karen's front door with a plate of homemade cookies and her best apologetic smile. Karen, I wanted to apologize for yesterday. I've been under so much stress since David died, and I think I overreacted to your lawyer's call. Karen opened the door cautiously, clearly suspicious of Sarah's sudden friendliness. She was wearing yoga pants and a tank top that showed off her gym-toned figure, not exactly grieving mother attire. I appreciate the apology, Sarah, but the legal process is already in motion. I know, and I understand. I really do. Your children have been through enough disruption. Sarah held out the cookies. I was hoping we could work something out directly, without lawyers. Maybe I could pay for some summer activities? Not the full amount Marcus mentioned, but something reasonable between neighbors. Interest flickered in Karen's eyes. What kind of amount were you thinking? Well, I don't have access to large sums immediately, but I could probably manage. $2,000. For swimming lessons, summer camp, whatever the kids need. $2,000 is insulting, Sarah. The psychological damage alone. I know it's not what you asked for, but it's what I can do without destroying my financial future. Emma's college fund, you know? I'm already drowning in medical debt. Karen studied her for a long moment, clearly calculating. I'd have to discuss it with Marcus. He's very concerned about setting precedents for future cases. Of course. Take your time. Sarah turned to leave, then paused. Oh, Karen? I was wondering, where do Maddie and Tyler usually swim now? I feel terrible that they lost access to pool time right before summer really started. They're managing. We've made other arrangements. That's good. I was worried they'd have to go without swimming entirely. Kids love pools so much, don't they? There's something magical about having your own private pool where they can just relax and play without crowds. Karen's face went very still. Yes. Well, we are managing. As Sarah walked back to her house, she caught movement at Karen's upstairs window, a flash of red hair that looked distinctly UN childlike. Marcus was already there, probably listening to every word. Perfect. Thursday morning, Sarah's phone rang at exactly 9 a.m. Mrs. Chen. Marcus Rodriguez. My client tells me you're interested in discussing settlement terms. That's right. I'd like to meet in person, if possible. These matters feel too important for phone calls. Absolutely. How about tomorrow evening? I could come to your house around 7 p.m. Actually, I'd prefer somewhere public. How about the Starbucks on Pine Street? A pause. Mrs. Chen, these discussions require privacy. Attorney-client privilege issues, you understand. Sarah smiled. A real lawyer would know that Karen, not Sarah, was his client. Of course. What would you suggest? My office would be most appropriate. I'll text you the address. The address he sent was for a strip mall location 20 minutes away, far enough from Karen's house to maintain the illusion of professional distance, close enough for convenient coordination. Friday evening, Sarah arrived at the strip mall. With Detective Morrison's recording equipment taped to her ribs and backup officers positioned in the parking lot. The office Marcus had directed her to was wedged between a nail salon and a check cashing service, with Rodriguez Legal Services painted on a window in fresh gold letters. Marcus answered the door wearing an expensive suit and his most professional smile. Up close, he was even more obviously younger than Bob Patterson, probably mid-30s, with a kind of effortless charm that made Sarah understand why Karen had risked her marriage for him. Mrs. Chen. Please, come in. Can I offer you coffee? Water? The office was barely furnished. Sarah arrived home at 9:30 p.m. to find Karen's house blazing with lights and her driveway full of cars she didn't recognize. Through the windows, she could see figures moving frantically, Karen gesticulating wildly while other people rifled through papers and boxes. Word traveled fast in the strip mall legal community, apparently. Detective Morrison had offered Sarah police protection for the night, but she'd declined. Karen's power had always been built on manipulation and fear, and both weapons were now useless. Marcus was in jail, their fraud scheme was exposed, and Karen was about to face consequences that went far beyond a failed lawsuit. But Sarah wanted to watch it happen. She positioned herself in her kitchen with a clear view of Karen's house and waited. At 10:15 p.m., a black SUV pulled into Karen's driveway, and two men in cheap suits got out. Even from a distance, Sarah could tell they weren't happy. The men disappeared into Karen's house for exactly 7 minutes. When they emerged, Karen followed them onto her porch, still wearing her yoga outfit but now clutching a cordless phone like a lifeline. The men got back in their SUV and drove away, leaving Karen standing alone under her porch light. Sarah's phone rang. "You bitch," Karen's voice was raw with panic. "You destroyed everything." "I exposed everything," Sarah corrected. "There's a difference. Marcus is in jail because of you. Do you have any idea what you've done to my family?" "Your family?" "Karen, you've been cheating on your husband with a con artist. You forged legal documents using your daughter's name. You threatened my child. What exactly did I do to your family that you hadn't already done yourself?" The silence stretched long enough that Sarah wondered if Karen had hung up. When she spoke again, her voice had changed, the suburban mom mask finally slipping to reveal something desperate and ugly underneath. "You don't understand the situation you've put me in. Enlighten me. Marcus we weren't just having an affair. He owes money. Serious money. To serious people." Sarah felt ice form in her stomach. "What kind of money?" "Gambling debts. Loan sharks. The kind of people who don't accept excuses or payment plans." Karen's voice cracked. The legal scam wasn't his idea, it was theirs. They needed clean income to launder money, and Marcus needed fast cash to stay alive. I was supposed to help him identify targets, gather personal information, make the threats believable. And in exchange, he'd pay off his debts and we'd disappear together. New identities, new life. But that required enough money to buy our way out, and now Marcus is in jail and you're left holding the bag. They think I set him up. They think I'm keeping the money we collected from other victims." Karen's breathing was rapid, panicked. "Sarah, they are coming for me. Tonight. And when they don't find what they are looking for, call the police." "I can't. I'm an accessory to everything Marcus did. Fraud, extortion, money laundering, I helped with all of it. The police will arrest me the second I walk into a station." Sarah stared across the fence line at Karen's house, where lights were still blazing and shadows moved behind curtains. "Where are Bob and the kids?" "Bob's still in Denver. The kids are at my mother's in Sacramento. I sent them away when things started getting complicated with Marcus." Karen's voice dropped to a whisper. "Sarah, I know I have no right to ask this, but I need help. These people don't care about revenge or justice. They just want their money, and they'll hurt anyone who gets in their way. Including my family. If they think you know where their money is, yes." Sarah closed her eyes, thinking of Emma safely in Portland, of David's voice telling her that doing the right thing wasn't always the safe thing. "How much money are we talking about?" $40,000. Maybe 50. We got lucky with a few big settlements before you figured us out. And these people think you have it." Marcus told them we were equal partners. 50-50 split on everything. Karen's laugh was bitter. "The truth is, I never saw a dime. He used me for information and cover, then kept all the money for himself. But try explaining that to people who break legs for a living." As if summoned by her words, headlights swept across Karen's front yard as a second black SUV pulled into her driveway. This time, 3 men got out, and their body language suggested they weren't there for conversation. "Karen, they are at your house." "Oh no. I'm not there." "Where are you?" Your backyard shed. Sarah spun around, peering through her kitchen window into the darkness. Sure enough, she could make out a figure huddled behind her tool shed, Karen. Reduced to hiding like a frightened animal in the shadows of the property she'd tried to destroy. Jesus, Karen. I know it's crazy, but I didn't know where else to go. Every hotel, every friend's house, they know about all of it. Marcus kept detailed files on everyone in my life. Through Karen's windows, Sarah could see the three men methodically searching the house. They weren't being careful about it, drawers pulled out and dumped, furniture overturned, walls punched where they suspected hidden safes. Sarah, please. I know I threatened you, I know I tried to ruin your life, but Emma's safe in Oregon and these people will kill me if they don't find their money. You should have thought of that before you decided to become a criminal. You're right. I should have. But I didn't, and now I'm going to die for a mistake I can't undo. Karen's voice broke completely. I have children, Sarah. Maddie and Tyler. Don't deserve to lose their mother because she was stupid and selfish and fell for a con man. Sarah watched the men in Karen's house grow increasingly agitated as their search turned up nothing. One of them pulled out a phone and made a brief call, his gestures sharp with anger. What happens if they don't find the money tonight? They'll assume I'm hiding somewhere local and expand the search. Friends, family, anyone I might run to for help. Karen's voice was barely audible. Eventually they'll realize Marcus lied about me having the money, but by then you'll be dead. Yeah. Sarah made a decision that would have horrified her cautious, rule-following husband but felt absolutely right in her bones. Stay where you are. Don't move, don't make any noise. I'm calling Detective Morrison. Sarah, I told you you told me you can't go to the police because you're an accessory. But you can cooperate with an ongoing investigation in exchange for protection and reduced charges. Will that actually work? I don't know. But it's better than waiting in my shed for loan sharks to find you. Sarah called Morrison's personal number, grateful that he'd insisted she keep it after Marcus's arrest. Mrs. Chen. It's pretty late for a social call. Detective, I need help. Karen Patterson is in my backyard hiding from people who want to hurt her, and I think they are connected to the Marcus Rodriguez case. What kind of people? Sarah described the SUVs, the search of Karen's house, and Karen's panicked confession about money laundering and loan sharks. Morrison listened without interrupting, his cop instincts clearly engaged. Where is Mrs. Patterson right now? Hiding behind my tool shed. And these men are still at her house? Yes. They are tearing the place apart. Mrs. Chen, I need you to listen carefully. Go to Mrs. Patterson and bring her inside your house immediately. Lock your doors, keep the lights off, and stay away from windows. I'm calling for backup and we'll be there in 10 minutes. What about the men at Karen's house? We'll handle them. But Mrs. Chen, this situation just got a lot more dangerous than a simple fraud case. These people kill witnesses. Sarah hung up and slipped out her back door into the humid night air. Karen was exactly where she'd said she'd be, crouched behind the shed in a ball of terror and designer athletic wear. Karen, Sarah whispered. Come on. We are going inside. Karen looked up with eyes that were puffy from crying and wide with fear. They'll see us. They are busy searching your house. Move quickly and stay low. They made it to Sarah's back door without incident, but as Sarah turned the key, she heard car doors slamming in Karen's driveway. The men were finished with their search and not happy about the results. Inside, Sarah pulled Karen into the living room and they both crouched below window level, watching as the three men conferred in Karen's front yard. Their conversation was brief and decisive. Two of them got back in the SUV and drove away. The third man walked directly toward Sarah's house. Oh God, Karen breathed. They know I'm here. The doorbell rang once, polite and civilized. Then again. Then the man began knocking, not frantically, but with the steady persistence of someone who had all night and no intention of leaving. Mrs. Chen. His voice was calm, almost friendly. I think you have something that belongs to my associates. Why don't we talk about it like reasonable people? Sarah's hands shook as she pulled out her phone to check the time. Morrison and his backup should arrive any minute. The knocking continued, patient and inexorable. Mrs. Chen, I know you're in there. I can see the light from your television. There's no reason for this to be unpleasant if we can just have a conversation. Karen grabbed Sarah's arm. Don't answer. Please don't answer. I won't, Sarah whispered back. But then the knocking stopped and they heard the sound of someone walking around the house, testing windows and doors. The man wasn't giving up, he was escalating. And Detective Morrison was nowhere in sight. The back door handle rattled as someone tried to turn it, followed by the soft scrape of metal on metal. Lockpicks, Sarah realized with horror.